it is, I personally don't know of any other real estate fund that has a social impact objective. So in that way, we are very different. It is a fund with a social impact objective, with a clearly defined mandate to complete construction. And that kind of mandate, like I said, is one, not seen or heard before. And two, it is of a scale that is also not seen in a domestic real estate fund, at least in the past, right? So we knew this was different, and we knew we had to get different results this time from funding real estate. And the obvious thing is that if you want to do something different, you have to do things maybe differently than what they have been done in the past before, right? You cannot expect to get different results by doing the same things all over again. So our experience, and we've been learning, it's a continuous learning program for us as well, and that's reflected in the way, we have molded our requirements to not just demands, but the requirements of the industry. So first things first, what we did very differently from the way funding has been looked at in the past is, we have looked at this as last mile funding. And when we spoke of last mile funding, and when we speak of last mile funding, we talk of that as funding that by itself is sufficient to complete the project. So funding that is not reliant, that is not dependent on the ecosystem, on the environment, on sales going ahead. There is maybe some reliance on receivables, and that the extent of that depends on what our diligence tells us about the quality of those receivables. But that's about it. The funding here is only is by itself sufficient to complete. And this is different from what every banker and lender has, and every developer for that matter, has sought funding for. So for example, I personally believe there is a magic number 25 crores, right? Every developer tells me that 25 crore, it will set everything, right? It doesn't. It has been tried before, it has been tested before, and there is enough evidence of the results floating around, right? So we had to do something different. So that's one. Two, what we did different was, for the first time, a private equity fund is looking at a project, not a promoter. And when he sees a project, he sees trapped home buyers in distress, and steps in to rescue that. He does not pass value statements on, the ethics of the promoter, on the track record of the promoter, on the demand supply situation in the vicinity, right? He decides that there is a home buyer that needs to be rescued, and they step in when everybody is running out. Like that fireman example. So we come in when no one else is willing to provide funding. I don't mean to be dramatic, but that's the way the approach to the funding is. We have no geographical preference, right? We are not a fund that says we have a sweet spot of 75 crores and we generally do our investments in MMR and Bangalore. We do our investments anywhere in India where RERA is applicable. And these are not high and mighty statements. We are currently spread out, I think, over 30 locations in the country. So that's a significant spread in a very short period of time. We also don't have a sweet spot, like I said. So we look at deals between, up to 800 crores. The maximum exposure we take in a single investment is 400. So we have the right to do multiple deals with the same developer till we reach a cap of 800 crores. Our funding is also very different from the way funding has generally been looked at. So our funding places an emphasis on construction, on completion of construction. It does not even talk about repayment till the construction is completed. It is completely back-ended. It emphasizes that even inflows will be used not to service the lender or the investor, but will be used to accelerate the project. It talks about funding that will be simultaneously available on various fronts, so that while you are waiting for cement to dry in one location, in another part in the same project, you can continue with. You can start finishing while you are still going up vertically. So it's going to dramatically reduce the construction timeline. Finally, I think a big difference that we have inculcated here, and which will be observed more and more going ahead, is we are not talking about funding developers, we are talking about funding projects. And that is reflected in the manner in which disbursements happen. So I have worked in several private equity funds in the past, and we've not done weekly funding for every project that we get into. Funding is against visible progress. Funding is against measurable progress And funding is done frequently. There is no lump sum funding. There is no war chest that is given to them. There is no petty cash amount that is with them. So my team acts as a project CFO. The developer will lead the project, but my team acts as a project CFO, authorizing, approving, vetting every payment that is done. And we use the project of a project services of a project management company that's actually stationed at the project, right? So we have daily reports on, material coming in, on labor mobilization, on physical progress, and especially on safety. So we are trying to place an emphasis and a premium on safety also at our work sites. So that's how, we are doing things slightly differently, and we are hopeful that the results will therefore be different.
No, this is fantastic. This is really very comprehensive. And, I loved it when you said the sweet spot is 25 crores. It is